Louise, Bedford here. I'm so excited to bring you an exclusive resource. And I know it's been a while since we've released something like this, so you'll get so much more value because I know you'll be hanging off every word. I've invited my friend Michael Yardney to discuss a very important topic with us today. Michael has a massive background in mindset, but also property development. And as you know, I'm the share trading person. So we've got a lovely balance of ideas today. We're going to talk about our top ideas for accelerated wealth creation. And I know you're going to love it. An in-depth report so that you can kick off and really live your best life and excel in your chosen field. So welcome, Michael.
Hi, Louise. Thanks for having me on. It's been a while, hasn't it?
It has, with all of the tumultuous occurrences of 2020, 2021's looking much brighter. I
Yes,
think a
it
lot
is.
of people have decided that 2021 is now underway and they're ready for their next step, which is exactly why I've invited you on today. So I'm very excited to hear about your views. Now, Michael, I know that you're Australia's leading expert in property, and it brings me great pleasure to tell people about you. I always do. It's amazing how often you come up in conversation. Also, you're a best-selling author. Maybe you could tell us a bit more about your background.
Well, yes, I am an author, and I don't know why, because I was never a good reader when I was young, but I've since written 9 books. One of them has become translated into 5 languages, an international seller, Rich Habits, Poor Habits. That was more about the psychology of success. So while I started getting involved in property investment and eventually property development, and now my team at Metropole help other people by giving strategic property, wealth, and financial planning advice, I got interested in why some people would become more successful than others, despite having the same knowledge, the same information, and often even more intelligence. So I learned why some are more successful than others by learning, mentoring people, having mentors myself. And now I'm in the position that once a year I get together with a small group of high net worth individuals on the Gold Coast at Wealth Retreat. And I know it's going to be a real pity that this will be the first year for a number of years that you won't be able to attend, but you're going to be attending virtually with the benefit of technology. So I've spent a bit of time in the last couple of months thinking about what we can do to help people accelerate their wealth. And I've done that by going back to some of the people who I've mentored and spoken to and been to Wealth Retreat in the past to give me some ideas of what we can do for the delegates this year.
Fantastic. Well, before we get on to talking about Wealth Retreat, I want to pick your brain. I want to find out some of the things that you've been focusing on to give our people shortcuts. So, if you had your time over again, what would you do to shortcut the whole process?
That's an interesting question because people ask that all the time. Knowing what you know now, what would you do? And I think the first step would be to educate myself. I bought my first investment property when I was in my early 20s. I didn't know anything. I just knew I wanted to get rich. So I bought close to where I lived, close to where I went to school, close to where my mother used to go shopping, all the wrong reasons, but it happened to be at the right time. So one of the worst things you can do is actually get it right first time, Louise. You think you're smarter than you are, but it's much more complicated today. So I think it's really important for whether it's in share trading, in business, in property, to educate yourself. But you've got to be really careful who you listen to because there's so many new self-professed gurus out. It's so easy with the internet today to get a website up, to get 1,000 LinkedIn followers and look like you know what you're doing. So what I learned though was if you do turn to books, to teachers, to mentors, to consultants, and I'm prepared to pay. I still pay for mentors to keep growing myself personally and to grow my business, Louise. So educate yourself is the first step.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. One of the things I read about recently in The Age, Michael, is a concept that I think a lot of us are struggling with at the moment. We aren't depressed, we're not burnt out, but we're not achieving at the top of our game. And it's something to do with the 2020 malaise. We've had our jobs threatened, our livelihoods have come under question. We don't even want to go back to the office for most of us, do we really, when it comes down to it? So, this idea where we're not excelling, but we're not like down at the bottom either, this middle ground they've termed as languishing. Now, I'm seeing it all around. I'm talking to my friends. They're telling me they don't want to go back to their job. They're not happy with where they were. They weren't even happy with what they had before, but they haven't quite emerged into this new view regarding who they can be. Now, I know you've spoken about wealth thermostats before, and I'm seeing this with people as well. They're not right down the bottom in terms of earning potential, but they're not up the top either. How do we shift our wealth thermostat? Can you talk about this a little bit more? I've loved this almost more than anything else you've discussed over the years with me. As you mentioned, this will be about well, the first time in over a decade that I haven't been to wealth retreat where I get that whole week to think about things like this, other than, of course, 2020, blah.
Yeah.
So from
Well,
now on with a new leaf, how do we affect our wealth thermostat? How do we push ourselves into that upper echelon?
Well, I think you're right that a lot of people are now questioning, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? We've had to reevaluate things, haven't we? And that's actually not a bad thing, but it's only a good thing if you actually do something about it rather than getting stuck there. And with regard to the wealth thermostat, a long time ago, I recognized we've all got our personal ceilings of achievement, and they're both based on our current thoughts, our current habits. So I believe that if we distributed all the money in the world evenly, in the next 5 years, 10 years, I don't know, it'd be back in the same proportions again, based on what people feel about money and their own internal wealth operating system, their wealth thermostat. So the answer is to turn up your thermostat. I know at Wealth Retreat, Ken Race often talks about a cup. If you are sitting at the seashore and all opportunities are coming, rather than have a small cup, have a bigger cup and you get more opportunities. I don't want a cup, I want a bucket. So you do that by upgrading your wealth programming, the way you think and the way you react about money. The universe abhors a vacuum. So if you suddenly get this big, large container, you're going to be able to fill it with wealth. So upgrade your way of thinking and become a bigger person. You're going to attract more. Most Australians, they do want to grow. They do want to do something different, as you say, but they try and do it by trial and error, or they're prepared to learn by their mistakes. In my mind, it's too hard. We're at the beginning of a new business cycle, a great new economic cycle, a great property cycle. This is a time of great opportunity. So the way you upgrade your wealth operating system is by understanding what you're doing. We're all driving around with one foot on the accelerator and one on the brake. So we're doing good things, but we're also holding ourselves back. So you've got to get rid of your disempowering beliefs and instead replace them with more positive, rich habits or empowering beliefs. And that takes time, but it's definitely doable, Louise.
Yeah. Look, I think one of the things that we're all craving as well is a little bit of time to reflect, some quiet time to be able to assimilate all of these ideas. You know, people are just so busy now. They're looking after their families, they've got their careers. You know, even a new puppy can throw a family completely for a spin. I think that quiet time to really reevaluate where you're at can make the biggest difference. And looking at other people's mistakes. You know what I've loved when I've had time with you? You've been so open to share some of your mistakes, and that has helped me not step on those same mines in that minefield. And I do appreciate that. And Michael, what would you say would be some of the areas that people can learn from in terms of the mistakes that others have made?
Well, that's a really good point. Learn from other people's mistakes. Have somebody lead the way who knows where the minefields are so you don't step on them. So, what stops people doing that? I think an element of it is ego. A lot of people I see are really good dentists, doctors, professionals, teachers, and so they think they can translate their skills from one area to another area. And that's not necessarily the case. And building wealth on your own, it's not only hard work, but it's slower and it's riskier. Alone, you're vulnerable. You'll never reach your full potential. But if you connect with the right mastermind group, and that's why I know you do that with your traders, and you've got a mastermind group, you've got a mentorship program. When you've got the right mastermind group, the chemistry will literally propel you to new heights. And that's one of the great things about Wealth Retreat. You can learn so much from the internet, you can learn so much from books. But if you're in the room with a group of already successful movers and shakers, it makes you think differently and you come out different. I mean, imagine if you could spend an afternoon with Warren Buffett or Richard Branson and ask them all the questions you wanted. Wouldn't you come out a different person? Well, at Wealth Retreat, I haven't got Warren Buffett, I haven't got Richard Branson, but I've actually got the smartest minds in property and tax, in finance, in business, and you with share trading. And that does leave a lasting impact. So, yes, how do you avoid the mistakes? By speaking to people who've done it. We all got to make mistakes, but you can learn from others rather than yours.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good plan. One of the things that I've found as well is by having some time to really be around big thinkers, your thinking automatically gets elevated. You know, I started talking trading because of a conversation I had, not even with the people who were presenting, with somebody in the audience, because the caliber of people that you surround yourself with actually determines your altitude. I had a conversation there and I went, oh, hang on, maybe this is what I can do and maybe this is how it can come together. And within just a month after that wealth retreat, Talking Trading was on the air. So
Mm.
it can be not just from the speakers, but also from the people that you're rubbing shoulders with and that you're comparing ideas with. We haven't had enough of that. So I've really missed the physical contact of actually being with people. What about you, Michael?
Oh, very much so. So I'm actually working from my home office, even though my physical office is down the road. So in line with what you were saying a little while ago, definitely there's a different work experience. And I'm not doing it because I'm scared of COVID. I'm actually enjoying what I'm doing, but I've also still have to get out and meet other people and deal with other people. And interestingly, the number of people already locked into Wealth Retreat for this year is bigger than ever at this stage in our lead up to Wealth Retreat, because everyone's saying the same thing. I just want to get out there and I want to be amongst other people. They deserve it and they want it. And so it's going to be a great event this year, because isolation is one of the largest obstacles to building wealth, Louise. If you don't have a group of like-minded investors, entrepreneurs, traders, business people around you, people you can share the challenges with, people you can brainstorm ideas with, people who you can leverage their contacts or celebrate your successes, it makes it much harder. So I know the people I've been speaking to about Wealth Retreat, one of the obstacles of growing their wealth has been they're looking for a group of ambitious, positive, like-minded people, supportive people, because they're feeling a bit vulnerable on their own. They know they're not reaching their full potential. So that's one of the reasons that I'm excited about going there as well. It's actually, I'm going to be seeing some of my team from other offices that I haven't seen in over a year.
I think the thing as well, a lot of people are finding that they can barely even remember what made them happy before COVID. It's
Mm.
putting in those basic building blocks so that we can reclaim who we were, but also the lessons that we've learned. I think that's a real thing. I see fear stopping a lot of people. But what are some of the common fears that you see that people are experiencing? Because we're living in a plague, for goodness sake. That has to be like an overriding blanket over a lot of us at the moment. And to be able to see through that so that we can see growth is another action altogether, isn't it? So let's look at the fears first. What do you see at the moment, Michael?
Well, apart from fear, there's also all the mixed messages in the media that is stimulating the fear. What's going to happen after JobKeeper? Are we going to fall off a cliff? What's going to happen to the virus? Is it going to come back? Not just in Australia, but overseas. Are we going to go to war with China? So the media is building on this. They love feeding us these sort of things, doesn't it, Louise?
I think it sells headlines, you know?
It does, it does.
Yeah.
So fears. Well, apart from those big picture fears, I think there's also the fear of failure. People are worried about, okay, what if I leave my job and start trading full time? What if I going to take on a big mortgage and commit to buying a property? What if I actually want to start an entrepreneurial endeavor, whether it's full time or part time? People are scared of failure. They're scared of what other people think, aren't they, Louise?
Absolutely. And I think sometimes with that, it can stop you from growing. You know, that can be a real impediment to your success. What other fears are you seeing?
Well, in the world of property, a lot of people are fearful of debt. They've been taught debt's bad, not to take on more debt than you can. In today's very, very low interest environment, where you can borrow with something with a two in front of it, and you can get capital growth that's significant, double-digit capital growth in properties. In my mind, debt is an asset. Well, actually, maybe I should clarify that. Good debt is an asset. So if you
Mm.
borrow to buy a car that depreciates, or buy a jet ski, or go on holidays, that's probably, well, it's not good. But buying it for appreciating assets, or to invest in a share portfolio, or even to invest in your education to improve and grow so you can get to the next level. I think fear of debt is something that's holding people back, when in fact it shouldn't be. And interestingly, we talked about fear of failure, Louise, but I know we've spoken about it before. Interestingly, some beginning investors and some beginning traders, they're actually a bit haunted by a fear of success. It may seem strange to people, but it's that feeling of unworthiness. I know you often speak about the imposter syndrome. People need to convince themselves that they're deserving of wealth. They're deserving to accumulate wealth. I mean, some people think I'm a bad person if I chase that.
Yes, it is interesting, that personal worth aspect. I was talking to a friend of mine at the gym yesterday who tends to go out with ratbag blokes who don't treat her very well. She's a gorgeous thing. She's absolutely stunning. And after chatting with her, she said, maybe I'm doing this to myself. Maybe I'm actually giving giving the vibe that this is okay, because what we tolerate, we get more of. So if you're accepting that that fear will always be with you in your life, if you're saying, oh, well, I'll never get out of this situation, I'll never manage, I'll never be able to be in those top echelon of traders, the top echelon of property investors, you're putting that out there and you're going to get more of it, because you get more of what you tolerate. And I think that's really an important point.
Very much so. I think another fear is people are a bit fearful of the unknown, what is
Mm.
likely to be ahead. But there's another one that's such a shame, and that's the fear of people to follow their passion. And that has all come out last year with COVID and being at home. And it was sort of hinted at by some of the words you said a little while ago. We see so many people spend 40 hours or more doing a job they don't enjoy, and they can only dream of following their passion. Interestingly, we keep talking about wealth retreat because it's on both our minds at the moment. But I remember about 30% of the attendees who attended past wealth retreats actually left their job, moved up. I remember a number of years ago, Stuart was a plumber, and he actually was very busy. He was in Sydney, and he sold his business. He cut back the hours he was working in his business, and he concentrated on property, and he did some amazing things. I remember Justin gave up his job in hospitality and started that internet business, going and being in a room of like-minded entrepreneurial movers and shakers, people who left their Superman capes at the front door, so there were no egos. He had the courage to do something. Julie left the security of her IT job to work for a property developer. She wanted to be a property developer, didn't have enough money to do it herself, but decided to learn in the industry. So it was a shift in the mindset that they got that allowed them to leave the security, so-called security of a day job. We know it's not that secure, and instead focus on the financial freedom they really want.
We're ripe for it at the moment too as a society. This much, that feeling of being unsettled, this much unrest in a community where we're actually really ripe for it, which I really like. I want to talk about overcoming some of these obstacles, some practical take it home type of specials here, so that we can really discuss what people can do. One of the things I think to overcome these type of fear obstacles is to firstly take a baby step. That initial first step can seem the most scary. For traders, sometimes putting on those first few trades can just seem like this Herculean jump. And it's almost like they build it up in their mind, Michael, where it's just so, so huge. And it doesn't have to be. If you break it down into tiny little steps and just take that first initial step, that can help. And I think also getting time to yourself so that you can really have that focused time, and getting selfish about your goals. Now, I know a lot of people have trouble with that, where they think, oh, I'm such a giver, I have to be there for my family and my friends. The thing is, if you get depleted and if your energy wears down, you won't have enough energy to help other people. What are some of the other things that people can do to overcome these obstacles, Michael?
Well, I think the first thing that you mentioned was an important one of just stepping back from the world and working on yourself and giving yourself permission to do that. And if you can do it in a room with other successful people, you can often simplify, I can't even say the word, the complexities of what's going on in the world and break it down into crystal clear steps. So what we do is actually help people build a plan. The theme of Wealth Retreat is where you're going to be in 5 years' time. And it's not just in money, and it's not just in property, it's not just in share trading or business. It's in all areas of your life, including health, including relationships, including recreation, including spirituality. So you actually work out where you want to go and also why, because you need a big enough why to overcome the obstacles, because you're going to come across obstacles. And if your why isn't big enough, the obstacles are going to stop you moving on. But the other important thing is we're spending a lot of time talking about money. So it probably is worth just stepping back a little bit and saying money is only one layer of real wealth and prosperity, and it's certainly not the most important. Last year, COVID showed us what is important: relationships, having somebody to love and somebody to love you. Health, what's the use of all this if you don't have health? Being able to learn and grow, that's important to me. Sure, money is important in those areas of life where it's important, but it's not at all important in those other areas. Yeah, actually, you've probably heard me say, Louise, that any problem money can solve isn't really a problem. So it's important still to grow your wealth. I'm not suggesting you shouldn't, but I think one has to take a more holistic view, because wealthy people, they've got time, they've got freedom, they've got relationships, they've got health, they've got spirituality. But you and I know also one of the big things that comes out of Wealth Retreat every year, Louise, is contribution. Isn't it interesting how many people actually want to give back to the community?
Yeah, it's so true. Often to give back, though, we have to have wealth ourselves in the first place. You know, the best thing that we can do for the poor is not be one of them. So I do I hear what you're saying, but certainly, you know, money does score highly for me. Yeah.
Well, so you've got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first, and then you've got the opportunity to do things with other people as well. I can't remember who said it. It was somebody famous said that it's not your fault if you. I think it could have been Steve Jobs. It's not your fault if you're born poor, but it's your fault if you die poor. Because where people are watching this in Australia and in Western countries, there's great opportunities at the moment. So one just has to reach out to take advantage of them.
Oh, tell you what, Michael, the other day on LinkedIn, I got in trouble for saying almost exactly the same thing. I said, there's no shame in being poor in the short term, but if you're carrying that with you for your life and you're believing your own excuses and you're carrying that into the long term and you don't end up wealthy, there's a problem. And you should have seen the hell I copped.
Mm,
People saying, how dare you? You know, you don't understand. Thing is, I've seen so many examples of people rising up from the most meager
mm.
circumstances, situations that would just make your eyelashes curl. They have actually emerged victorious because they refused to take their own excuses. That is one thing I really enjoy about your company, Michael. When I've seen you working with people, if somebody gives you an excuse, you give this like compelling look, like, okay, we're going to wait for them to realize what they've just said. And usually they do see that we don't have patience for excuses. There is no patience for excuses here because high performing people don't allow themselves to give excuses.
You
So,
have to
what sort
feel
of,
sorry for yourself for a short time. Just
yeah, you
didn't work
can.
out for a
Yeah.
short time, then you move on.
Yes, because if you don't, you end up stuck. And we don't want to end up stuck.
Well,
So, what
that's
sort of people come to Wealth Retreat, Michael? Is it people who have already made it and they've already hit the big time, or is it people who are strivers? Give me a bit of an idea of who you're looking to attract.
well. Before I do, if I could just finish off a point that you were making a second ago about that LinkedIn
Oh,
comment,
yeah.
it shows the importance of your peer group, doesn't it? It
Yes.
actually shows that you need to be around people who encourage you, because there will always be people who find negative things there. So I think it's important to ask yourself, for people to ask themselves, Will my current peer group empower me to get to my dreams, to empower me to get to my life purpose? Will they hold me accountable, or will they let me slip back? Will they feed my ideas, or will they challenge me, or will they say, no, it's a silly thing to do? Will they support me when I fall over, when I have a tough time? Will they inspire me? So it's really, really important to get a good peer group around you. And I know that's part of what you do with Talking Trading, by encouraging people, and also by having your mentorship program. It's what we do when we get together in a room with movers and shakers at Wealth Retreat. So your peer group is very, very important. And now's the time if you want to step up to get a new peer group. So maybe that actually does lead into what you were just asking a moment ago, who is going to be there and who could be part of your peer group. And interestingly, Louise, already three-quarters of the spots for Wealth Retreat are taken, and about 25% of them are return attendees. Some are coming back for the second time, some for the third and fourth. You remember Bridget, she's been, I think, 8 or 9 times. And some people would say, why would they come back if they're successful? And I could say, they're successful because they come back. The questions are the same, but the answers are different each year. They come back to work on themselves, to learn and to grow. The second group of attendees, there's a number of very, very high net worth individuals there. They've come to grow. They've come to nurture their businesses. There's a lot of business people and entrepreneurs, quite a few share traders, a lot of people interested in property. But the bulk are experienced property investors between 2 and 10 properties, but they're looking to expand their network. They're wanting to supersize their investing. And over the last couple of years, you've noticed the trend also, Louise, there's a lot of business people there. There's a lot of entrepreneurs there. There's more share traders there. But my message to anyone watching this is, don't count yourself out. Every year, we also have a group of aspiring young people join us who want to get the sort of investment information and knowledge that's going to propel them, the type of information I would have liked to have when I first started out. And this year, we're going to have some special sessions to take advantage of the growing trend. Simon Kirstenmacher, one of Australia's leading demographers, is going to be talking about some of the big shifts, the big trends that are going to occur in Australia moving forward, so that business people, entrepreneurs, investors can understand how the years are going to be different post-COVID. And boy, will it be a different world, Louise.
Yeah, I think it already is. I really feel that shift. I think
Mm.
so many people have that rattled feeling and they're uncomfortable, but they don't know what to do with that pent up energy. And I love the thought that you can listen to a resource like this and come out with specifics. We've talked about how people are drowning with fear and that they're facing loads of obstacles, and some of the key things that you can do to be able to get yourself out of that mindset and into a bigger room, where the action is. So you set your small goals first. You make sure that you're associating with a peer group who supports you. You make sure you've got a group of mentors who care for you and who can see the big picture and who have been down that path before you. And you start small. You start with small goals that you can achieve to give you confidence and that you can have as a maintenance strategy for the rest of your life. But this is the thing, we only get one shot at this. We have got one life, so we have to make the most of it. So, Michael, if people are interested in pursuing that bigger room, in pursuing that life that you're talking about, where there's freedom, there's choices, and there's a peer group to support them, and it's not just for property, it's also for business and a little bit on trading as well. If people are interested in finding out more about this as a first little step, what can they do?
Well, there's one other group of people that should be looking at this as well. And those people who want to get out of the world of being paid by the hour and into the
No.
world of running their own business, whether it's a property business, whether it's a share trading business, whether it's a physical shop or business or an internet business, because a lot of us recognize that there's not a lot of security in a 9 to 5 job anymore. So if you're interested in that, and as I said, many of the past graduates have already left their jobs to pursue their passions, and it's fascinating to follow them and see how well they've done. But if you're interested in that, the simplest thing is to go to wealthretreat.com.au and read all about it. There's lots of information on the Wealth Retreat website. The problem is you can't book in. We actually speak with everybody who's interested. So declare your interest, register your interest, and Joe from my office will call you. And speak to you and see if it's a proper fit. Again, don't count yourself out, but at least go to wealthretreat.com.au, register your interest, and we'll have a chat and answer any of your questions. And for anyone who mentions this webcast, and I think the easiest when you speak to Joe, just say that we've actually, you saw the chat with Louise, Bedford, and me. I'm going to offer you something extra special as an ethical bribe to make sure that it's worth your while coming to Wealth Retreat. So wealthretreat.com.au, tell us you're interested. We'll do the rest.
Oh, you're a lovely man, Michael. Gosh, we've been friends for so long
Mm.
now. I don't even know, is it 15 years? It's such a long-term friendship. And I have benefited so much from your insights, but also your care. I had a very big patch of ill health in 2020, and you were right by my side, giving me encouragement and giving me that feeling that this is more than just business. And I can't tell you how much that meant to me. So, my friend, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your insights with the people I care about, my clients, my traders, because if you can trade, you can actually probably even expand out into property. The two mindsets are very, very similar. So check out what Michael has to say at wealthretreat.com.au, and I will see you very shortly on the next Talking Trading show at talkingtrading.com.au or in my Trading Game newsletter. Great spending time with you.
My pleasure, Louise.